It's Brian Preston, the Money Guy.
This is from James McBee, and this is what James said. Hey, I know the guys have given plenty of advice in the past on buying a car, but are the money guys absolutely against leasing? I'm not talking about leasing luxury vehicles either. Cheap workhorse cars, more than I have to worry about maintenance than the desire to have a new car every 3 years. So we haven't talked about leasing a ton, but we do have some experience with clients that have done that. I want to talk about maybe some of the times when it was good, times when it was bad.
First, I like to give the foundation of
Sure.
why is leasing not something that we talk about a ton. Look, I know we're in a unique time right now where used cars have actually appreciated in value. There's a supply shortage of new cars, so weird distortions. But this stuff will level out. So I'm going to give you more timeless advice that works, even when we're outside these unique events. Cars typically are not great for your financial well-being. Sure. Because they depreciate rapidly. We know within the first 4 years, typically a car is going to depreciate by 50%, especially new cars. The other part is you have to pay to maintain them. You have to pay to put it for insurance on them. And then it's just one of those things where people's eyes are typically bigger than their wallets with cars because the financing now is, I think we're close to 7 years on average. We're at 84 months. Somewhere around there. And that's a disaster long term because you end up never owning your life. Anything. So that is probably, I can see why James asked this question because he's like, well, heck, if everybody's renting their life anyway, why not just go ahead and choose the product that is designed for rent? But I don't love that because my ideal use of a car is you drive them for over a decade. Because if you can get into a habit of driving cars for a decade, you get a lot of those paid-for dividends because the best driving car is that paid-for car that's not giving you a lot of trouble. And it just, I don't know, there's something nice about having the car that you're not worried about if somebody dings you in the grocery store parking lot. It's paid for, and it all works well. So I don't want to get all my financial mutants away from that, but I will come back to where James is at with talking about what about leasing? Is there a time where financial mutants could lease? I first think this is something you better be in a very healthy state with your financial order of operations because, like I said, cars do not need to be a status symbol where you fake your success by using a bridge of either debt or lease payments, affordable lease payments, that you get to act like you're wealthier than you actually are just to impress people so that when you get to be in your 50s and 60s later, you go, man, maybe I shouldn't have been leasing that car. Now, James let us know he's not talking about luxury cars.
He said he wants a cheap workhorse car.
So I think people who are like, let's talk about if you used it for work, like trucks and other things where maybe you beat the heck out of them and you need to turn them over. I think that makes sense. I think there's other people, sales reps and others, but typically that won't even work because the mileage allowance. It's a very select group of people. Maybe I'm going to go the abundance route. But just like we have the latte effect that I tell people who are saving 25%, go drink as many cups of coffee as you want from Starbucks as long as you're saving. I think the same thing goes with leasing. Maybe you're a car person. I know people, we have clients that love driving nice cars, and they know they're going to turn them over every 3 to 4 years. I think that's who leasing appeals to, but you have to know that this is not an optimal strategy, but sometimes good personal finance is not always optimizing. Sometimes it's just about enjoying the fruits of what you've done with.
Now, Brian, we've been hanging out long enough. Sometimes I come up with crazy ideas. Like I'll just come up with, here's a way to go make money, or here's a way to go do whatever. One of the best exercises I always do whenever I come up with these crazy ideas is I get on a spreadsheet and do the mathematics on it. Because you said, hey, maybe I should lease so I don't have to pay for maintenance. Well, you ought to figure out, okay, well, how much does that lease cost? And then what's the maintenance cost going to be? And how much would it cost me to own it? And what's the residual value when I sell it? And let the mathematics dictate the decision. Because if you're not someone who drives less than 10,000, 12,000, 15,000 miles a year, a lease it's going to be hard for the math to really make sense for leasing, but I think it's a really worthwhile exercise for your unique and specific situation to determine what makes the most sense.
We have 2 content team members here who have Toyotas that have over 200,000 miles on their cars.
It's unbelievable.
So it's kind of amazing.
We hire mutants around
when you think about how far a car can go with how well they're engineered and designed right now. So I definitely think that goes into it. So I think it's one of those things. Leasing is it's the cherry on top of your sundae. This is not something that I think the typical person who's aspirational or building wealth, you're not going to start with leasing initially, because it's just, cars are just so bad for your finances through the depreciation, through the maintenance, through the taxes, through the insurance. It's much better if you build the wealth. Let this be something that you enjoy and reward yourself with later. This is another reason why I get on to parents to buy your kids brand new cars, is because there is something really fulfilling about buying that first used car for yourself, something fulfilling about buying that first new car for yourself. First thing about buying that first luxury car for yourself, don't rob yourself of all the steps of the hedonic treadmill that you get to enjoy each one of those savory bites of the journey. Whereas if you fake it and buy yourself a luxury car in your 20s, but you really couldn't afford it, and then you have to go do the Dave Ramsey and buy the clunker to get you through your bad life decisions later, it's hard to go back down that ladder. Right. So I'd rather you to always be climbing the treadmill versus falling down.